Is it the Juggling Clients website? Yes, I was looking at it.
Yes. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment on one of the pieces that I saw. It was the skull made out of sugar packets. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, thank you.
It was in the dinner piece, yeah. I thought that was super cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I think in the book now there were about 50 at the time, and we're still making these. I imagine we'll be making them for the rest of our lives. So at some point there will probably be a volume 2. But yeah, it's funny, the transformation. Suddenly they wanted to move, so we started making these strange little videos, and everything is done at the restaurant. And it's funny because, you know, if you're going to some place that has a lot of paper goods, those are places where they don't expect you to hang out very long, you know, that's where you like eat and run. So if you spend a half an hour there or longer, they start getting really suspicious, and you can tell that they're wondering if they need to call somebody and shoo us out. And then eventually they recognize that we're making art. And then at a certain point, I mean, we have these weird rules. When we do those, we actually say, okay, we take no scissors, no glue, no tape. We take nothing with us to make that stuff. It has to be made only with the junk that's there. If we need to you know, shape it, it's got to be torn, you know, or poked or prodded, pinned together with the stuff. And then people, you know, once they notice we're making art, then usually they'll come up and ask if they can give us anything else. And then it's like, yeah, bring us anything you want.
What's also very interesting is we often run into comments in school and say, well, I cannot be a real artist because I have no means to buy big canvases or expensive paint. And here this is a fabulous example that you can make art from everything what is around you with some ideas in your head, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, it's really, it's also one of the last things I show my students, you know, on the first day of class. You know, you've got your materials in front of you, you have no idea what to do, just start playing. And I even do a project where I'll bring in a brick, and, you know, a brick with 2 holes in, and I just say, okay, tell me what this is, and I pass it around. Most of them come up with something, and then I send it around again, and then I send it around again. And every time somebody grabs the brick, they have to say what this could possibly be or what it looks like. And then at the end of that, you know, then everything's easy, because I say, look at these things you came up with a brick with 2 holes in it. So you have no excuse not to create something amazing now with your materials, you know. Think of the brick.
I would like to go back with you, if you don't mind, to one of your art pieces with the little Buddhas and the notes. I thought this was fascinating and reminded me that there are so many ways to ask people what they think and what is within them. So you said that you at one point read the notes. Did you ever do something with it? Did you make a book out of it, or do you want to publish them, or you think this is not good to publish them because they were written for nobody to see?
Well, actually, during the run of the exhibition, and that was going on for a few months at California Center for the Arts Museum, we posted them every once in a while on Facebook. Every day or every other day, we would post one. And again, it felt, some of them were really kind of shocking. I mean, they were talking about just some really, really powerful things. And I think, you know, in a certain sense, they might have been thinking it's like going to a holy shrine and you write that secret you don't want anyone to know and you stick it in the wall or whatever. And kind of like, it's a powerful thing like that. But we did think, okay, well, there aren't any names on them. We'll put some of these things out into the ether, and hopefully, you know, there will be change for the better in their lives. But yeah, there was. Yeah, also as a metaphor, I mean, this idea at the end of this bag of people's dreams was like just such a powerful thing. And as artists, you're always, you know, thinking in metaphor. That could have been a work in itself, you know, the sealed bag where you can't see it. You can see like little snippets of what people wrote, but maybe not the whole thing. And just, you know, it became an amazing sort of artifact of the piece. That was also very powerful because when we toured the chess set, you know, people were talking politics, and sometimes they would say things that just made us cringe, but, you know, keep the camera running, document it all. get permission, and then we made it became kind of a document of the times. I think it's really historically significant because it's talking about, you know, America's forays into a war in the Middle East before there was really kind of a plan at all. And then the surprising things that came out of it is powerful. And again, I think our strongest works are things that exceed our expectations, that kind of go beyond what we think the potential of that piece is. And bringing other people into it as a participatory thing always creates something amazing that just surprises us.
But it should be interesting for them to know how you work in sense of, are you following the politics and get then your idea what to do with it, or are you creating the piece and fit it into the politics? How are you doing that?
No,
I mean, not fitting into the politics like, oh yes, we do politics, but I mean, of course you take occasions, but how do you find your spot where you say, we do something about that? Is this a zeitgeist, or is this something what moves you, or is it something what moves the world at the moment, or how do you do that?
well, there's no lack of material to work with because there's so much going on in the world. We're driven to do it. The thing that we don't know when we decide what it is we want to talk about is how to talk about it, how to iterate it, what materials to use. And that's why when you look at our site, and a lot of people have had trouble, you know, they look at it and they go, I don't know what to make of you. You know, you're working with robots and you're making traditional drawings and you're doing this and you're doing that. And that's because we have to figure out the best way to talk about those things. And it could be in any one of those medias, or more importantly, the next one, the one that we haven't used yet. We've done things with ketchup, and we've done things with salt, and we've done things with sugar. Now we're doing things with sugar, and mud, and also computers and robots and Arduinos and all of this stuff that, you know, we have minimal understanding of. We were never trained to do this stuff. When students ask me, what do I need to know to be an artist? The answer is everything. You know, all you can learn, even in higher education, is, you know, learn how to teach yourself everything you're ever going to need to know. And it's out there. I mean, it's remarkable that we live in a time where I need to know how to make a sugar tank. You know, I can look up sugar skulls and there might be 10 different recipes. Oh, I will tell you something really funny. You know, I'm making these sugar tanks and they say, okay, it's supposed to have the consistency of wet sand, and all of the recipes that I saw used almost no water. I have a feeling that it was like a source of family pride to say, oh yeah, we used like no water at all in the making of these things. So I kept adding and adding and adding, and eventually I tripled the amount of water that I had to do to make this. So I don't see how anybody could possibly make sugar skulls with as little water as they were saying. But it's like, that's part of the challenge. Like, this just doesn't feel right. I've never done it before, but something's not right. And then you have to kind of like find your way through it. And that's fun, that's exciting. Not even knowing if it's gonna work. Those challenges are amazing, and they're the things that drive us forward. I mean, we love making art because it's new territory. Everything we do is new territory.
It's super interesting, and I think that's the final moment of the piece, of the artwork, is when you finally get the time to share that with the public. That's where the art piece is really done, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think that's the completion. The public, that is the one who complete and finalize the piece.
There's also that understanding that you let it go, and, you know, people bring their own baggage to it, and you never know what they're going to come away with. So it's like when we made our chess set, to us it was, you know, an anti-war statement. It talked about, you know, it said war is confusion, war is unfair, you know, and those are some of the better elements. But there were people that played that game and they're like, yeah, you know, they could be hiding under those burqas and they have weapons under there and they're the enemy. There are people that sat down, you know, before they sat down, they're like, which side are you on? You know, or, you know, what are you trying to say? And once we let them know this was really more about their intentions than ours, then people felt free to talk. we had Muslim people that watched us when we set it up at Arizona State University. It's where the debates were happening, presidential debates. And there's a group of Muslims that watched us have other people play that game for about 2 hours before they came up. You know, they were not sure because nobody had ever asked them how they felt about anything. They felt like the outsiders, they felt like they were suspect, that they were the enemies. And once we said, you know, once they learned what this piece was about, it was sort of about intentions and how two people can look at things in a different way, you know, suddenly they were very interested and they started telling us all kinds of stories. There were personal things that I'm sure they hadn't shared with anybody because they didn't feel compelled to do that. They didn't feel safe doing that other than a situation like that. It was a catalyst for something else. And sometimes those things can be, and you never know what it's a catalyst for. Sometimes it's a catalyst for good and sometimes for not. And that's why, like I said, when the camera was running, we just let it run. And sometimes people said things that we just thought were absolutely horrible, but it had to be documented as a part of the thing, you know, a larger thing that's beyond our own vision, driven by the art.
All right. So Larry, so I find it really interesting that you experiment with a lot of these artworks that you make, especially when they have to do with like big issues in the world and these giant political issues. And my question is, are you often like nervous about the outcome of your piece, especially when you're experimenting, because you're experimenting on something that's very controversial or a really big deal in society?
I think not. And the reason is because I think if you don't do what you feel you need to do, it's easy to become kind of paralyzed. I know some artists who have had conversations with me and they're like, you know, well, I'm doing something that's kind of political, but I'm not sure it's going to be taken in the right way. Is it, you know, cultural appropriation or, you know, they're worried about people misunderstanding. The truth is, two people will see the same thing and one person will get your attention and somebody might look at it in a completely different way. That's to be expected. So I don't envision the outcome. I don't envision what they're going to take away from it. Really what I'm doing is generating the way to have a conversation, and whether they agree with me or don't agree with me, the conversation is the thing that's really valuable. You're talking about an issue. And I think that's something that does need to be done. And if you're compelled to do it, I mean, we are compelled to do it. I don't think I could survive as an artist or as a person without getting involved in those things. It's just something I need to do. But yeah, I mean, it is something that concerns people, and I know it makes people second guess. But you know, I've been doing work that deals with issues of social justice for more than 30 years. So it would actually be kind of a false thing for me to walk away now and say, well, I don't want to do it because, you know, I worry about offending people. It is possible that, you know, I could make art that could be tone deaf, you know, in some ways, but maybe in other ways not. And maybe some things hit on the nose and other things don't. And I think that's just, it's the nature of the world that we live in. But I think for me, the important thing about making art is just about engagement. Because we both we can fill in for each other in different things. We know that we don't want to redo the same, you know, effort twice. So we do have conversations about it. And we, you know, the rules are you never just kind of like shoot down an idea right away, even if you don't think the idea is going to work. You let it ferment until something comes out of it or doesn't come out of it. And that's part of the beauty of working together too. It's like when you have two minds working on one thing, it goes off in directions that ends up surprising both of you, and makes the projects grow more. So I think it's an absolutely amazing thing. I can't imagine, you know, working without Deb. Say hi.